Welcome to the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast. My name is Paul Salter, and I'm a triple-digit golfer on a quest to become a scratch golfer. I'm also a high-performance mindset coach and credentialed hypnotherapist with 15 years of experience helping high performers from all walks of life get unstuck and unlock their full potential. Join me each week as I not only detail my journey, but make mastering the mental game of golf simple, tangible, and relatable so that you can overcome the mental hazards keeping you stuck in the proverbial bunker of poor performance. Imagine counting down the days until this event. You've gotten in your first official lesson with a golf pro and instructor. You've hit the range. You've walked to your local park to hit plastic golf ball after plastic golf ball. And you're finally ready to play your first 9 holes, the second round of 9 holes that you have played in more than 15 years. The first round of 9 holes since you have declared committed to becoming a scratch golfer. And making the moment even sweeter, you're playing these 9 holes, again, your first 9 holes in more than 6 years with one of your best friends who you've known for, wow, I guess a decade at this point. I hadn't actually thought about that until this moment. Really cool. I love you, Kev. And it all has come together. You spent the night before reviewing the front 9, the course description, the hole-by-hole details on the course website. You've got notes in a journal. You've gone through in your mind time and time again your pre-shot and post-shot routine. You know what you're going to do when the inevitable emotional accumulation begins. You know how you're going to approach the 30 to 40 minutes you're going to spend on the range and the putting green beforehand. And just like that, the first 4 holes go by in one of the fastest, most frustrating periods of your life that you have ever experienced. You have shown up to have fun catching up with one of your dear friends, to finally relax and unleash the practice and excitement you have been harboring and putting forth toward this moment, to lay a massive goose egg, to be bogged down by the false sense of urgency and pressure that you have placed upon yourself, which is inevitably zapped almost all of the fucking fun from what is supposedly a simple and easy game. And that, my friend, is a pretty damn good overview of how my first real 9 holes went on my quest to becoming a scratch golfer. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast. I am your host, Paul Salter, currently a triple-digit golfer on a quest to become a scratch golfer. And I'm also a high-performance mindset coach and credentialed hypnotherapist who is using myself to share a vulnerable, in-depth, no details left behind look on the mental game, the emotional roller coaster, and the challenging self-talk and mental chatter we all have to navigate and conquer to play our best golf. In every episode, I plan to share my own personal revelations, stories, triumphs, and challenges, and weave in teaching moments, concepts, and practical applications to help you overcome the emotional, mental hazards of your mind to shoot lower scores more consistently. And I want to kickstart this episode by expanding upon that detailed overview I gave of my first 9 holes. Wow. What a 9 holes it was. But let me share a little backstory to bring us completely up to speed, knowing that by the end of this episode, you will be caught up in real time. It's April 24th as I record this. This episode goes live on April 25th, and I have my second round of 9 scheduled for this Sunday, which I believe, I don't know what day that makes it, the 28th, I think? Anywho, with that said, to date, I have had 2 formal lessons with my one-on-one coach, swing instructor here locally in Clearwater, Florida, and I have learned a tremendous amount. I have had 1 solo range session before any of my lessons and 1 additional range session immediately following my second private lesson with my coach. And that is where I stand. I've putted in consistently on the carpet in my kitchen. I've hit dozens, if not hundreds, of plastic golf balls, and I'm finally feeling like I'm getting a grasp on my swing. But I want to take you back to that first lesson, because I approached that lesson asking my coach to teach me like this was the first time I was picking up a club. He helped me really understand and begin to fine-tune and feel in to an optimal grip of the club. He helped review the basics of fine-tuning my grip, my aim, my stance, and of course, we spent a hell of a lot of time and will inevitably continuously to spend a lot of time on the beloved fundamental part of the game, which is the golf swing. And during that first lesson, I'm not gonna lie, I hit so many balls cleanly, I had the completely irrational but oh so normal thought, easy game. I mean, you know what it's like. When that ball hits the smooth spot, or the sweet spot of your club, it flows effortlessly out straight in front, maybe just a little bit of a natural draw or fade depending on your swing. It goes where you want to go. It goes a respectable distance. It feels effortless. It is an intoxicating drug that you just want more and more of. And it's the little micro moments like that, especially when they accumulate in a repeated fashion, that get you not only so hooked on the beautiful game of golf, but they also wildly exaggerate realistic expectations of being able to effortlessly repeat that same swing, stroke, and outcome over and over and over throughout the course of a hole, a round, and round after round. But that is where I found myself after that first lesson. I was confident. And this is especially true because coming off of my first range session prior to this lesson, I was shanking 9 out of 10 shots. No fucking clue what was going on, what I was doing wrong. I just wanted to hold a golf club and get a little bit more acclimated before my first lesson. After that lesson, I felt good. I was going to golf with a great buddy of mine. Like, things couldn't have been better. I had a master plan. I was putting in place everything I teach my clients to do, reviewing the course ahead of time, taking a few moments to plan out the shots, to see the shots on a hole-by-hole basis the night before playing. I got to the course early. I hit the range and went through my clubs, pitching wedge 9, 7, 5, 5-wood, driver. I did a little bit of chipping. I did a little bit of putting. I was ready to go. And inevitably, what do you expect happened on that very first shot off the first hole? Completely fucking whiffed and just topped that ball. Understandable. Okay, a little first tee box jitters. My buddy is there. I want to make a good impression because I am still, for some damn reason, 3+ decades later, so programmed to care what other people think, which we'll circle back to. The foursome behind us had just pulled up after my buddy teed off first, and I was up there with some added eyeballs and, again, false sense of urgency and pressure upon me. So quickly, without giving a fuck, I took my one mulligan of the day, teed off again, and hit what I would consider a respectable shot with my 5-wood, maybe 160, 170 yards on the right edge of the fairway. Okay, whew, big sigh of relief. We are off to the races. Well, I can tell you that first hole was quite promising aside from that first shot. I was able to get around. My second shot landed around the green, but on 3 shots, I was on the green. I was putting for par. Well, 4 putts later, I walked away defeated with a triple bogey. Now, if we take a step back, let's call it is what it is. Like, I'm a double or triple bogey golfer. Like, this is just where I'm at in my journey right now. Yet after such a promising start, mulligan aside, my expectation continued to grow and grow and grow. It grew at a pace that was not realistic. It was exaggerated so quickly. And they say, and I teach this all the time, that frustration lies in the space between reality and your expectations. If you don't learn to temper and develop a more content and neutral relationship with expectations, you will continue to live in that space between reality and expectation. And in that space is where you breed, harbor, and rapidly grow frustration, anger, and disappointment. So right out of the gate, the amount of frustration I am beginning to carry is growing. And that's without me even mentioning just the overwhelming sense of excitement, nerves, and as a result, tension I'm carrying into my body to this first hole. It's been so long since I've played. I've committed and shared with the world I've got a goal of achieving what 1 or less than 1% of golfers ultimately achieve, becoming a scratch golfer. So I'm already carrying some self-imposed tension and high-charged emotion to begin my round. This is not a good place to be. And that's a pretty good way to collectively describe what inevitably became my downfall for the remainder of the round. The next hole was a par 4. I shot a 10. And that should pretty much give you a pretty good description of what transpired the 7 holes after that, as I eventually came in to shoot a humbling 65. And that's where we are. A 65 on 9 holes. But the beautiful thing is, in order to reach a goal, the most important step you must take is to actually start. I've started. Can it get worse? Yeah, I mean, I guess technically it could, but I know exactly where I'm at. I know exactly what I need to work on in my game. Hint, fucking everything. Like, let's not joke here. Let's be obvious. Every aspect of my game needs work. I still, to be frank, have no technical or fundamental understanding of chipping and putting. I've just been hitting iron after iron after iron, anywhere from pitching wedge down to my 3-iron. And by the way, my golf club set, if you didn't catch the first episode, has a 1-iron in it. They don't even make those anymore. So neat. I screw around with that on occasion just because my instructor is fascinated by it, says he hasn't seen one of those in decades. But I digress. So the technical aspect of my game needs a ton of work. But as a mental game expert and high performance mindset coach, I was shocked to learn how many triggers, emotional and mental triggers, stories, beliefs, fears, and behaviors, this round of golf shined a bright, big spotlight on. And I took some notes in the notes app on my phone. I played with my phone on airplane mode, and I took some voice notes throughout the round and immediately after the round, kind of summarized my headspace, my thoughts, and where I was at. And one thing was abundantly clear to me. And I wrote down, and I quote, "I felt an unnecessary urgency and sense of pressure to play quick. I continued to feel like the people behind us were pressing and rushing." End quote. You know, there was one theme in the feedback shared by my teachers during parent-teacher conferences, through grades K through 5 growing up. Paul does great work. Paul's a pleasure to have in class. Paul would do even better if he took his time, didn't rush through his work. He's prone to making careless errors. To be frank and humble, one of my gifts and superpowers is I am a very fast information processor. It's a gift and a curse. It has led to many triumphs and successes, but it's also put me in my fair share of tough spots and cost me dearly, emotionally, physically, mentally, even financially at times, because I am so prone to this default sense of urgency and rushing. And I began to notice that this was magnified feeling as if I almost had the foursome behind me breathing down my fucking neck every single time I stood up at the tee box. And barring that mulligan I took on the first hole, I did not have one decent tee shot the remainder of the round. I didn't touch my driver. I was either long iron or, a 9 or a pitching wedge on a par 3 or a 5-wood, or no, it's a 3-wood, excuse me, the rest of the round. But I just felt rushed, and this grew and intensified every single hole, which detracted me further and further from my plan of having a sound pre- and post-shot routine. I started feeling a distinct, obvious tension in my chest that as the round grew began to permeate throughout my upper body, my shoulders, and my arms. And you and I both know that tension is a free, fluid, and easy golf swing's arch nemesis. You want to be cool, calm, collected, and relaxed, and able to execute an effortless, fluid-like swing. And it was no wonder my swing struggled. I mean, yes, I continued to get more and more in my head as the round progressed because my swing was nowhere near what I had learned from my first lesson. But the culprit behind that was the immense amount of tension I was carrying by harboring this false sense of urgency and pressure to play quick by the foursome behind me. And the funny thing is, I had a chance to actually speak with and meet the foursome behind me. A bunch of old retired guys who were friendly, kind as can be. They didn't give a fuck about the pace of play. They were in their 70s and 80s just enjoying the beautiful morning that Tampa had to offer. And I started to chuckle once I finally met them on the 7th or 8th hole. Like, this whole entire time, I was making assumptions. And the noise, the inner chatter in my mind was growing stronger. That self-talk was growing more harsh, negative, critical, and judgmental, which was further tainting my thoughts, my beliefs, tensing up my body, leading to poor results and mistakes. And this feedback loop just grew stronger and stronger the remainder of my round. Another interesting observation I had that I think many of you will resonate with is my buddy playing. He was just fucking there to have a great time. He's got 2 young kids. The fact that he was able, and I say this word jokingly, but escape for a little bit, get some bro time, some time to himself to kick back, relax, and have fun during a work day. That's what he was treasuring most. He was looking forward to connecting, catching up with me. He couldn't care less about shooting a 50 or a 60. And I wanted to cater to that. Here I showed him I was so prepared. I had my notebook to take notes, all of my pre-round planning on each individual hole. And he chuckled, and I felt, to be frank, a little embarrassed. Like, we were on such polar opposites. Of course I was there to have fun, but I mean fucking business. I'm not going to laugh my way to becoming a scratch golfer. And I immediately felt myself, and this is, humbling as hell to admit, kind of shrink up for a moment, back down, play small, not fully embrace with the utmost confidence my passion towards making this goal happen. And I got away from some of my practices. I started getting away from the pre and post shot routine, taking notes, having some reflection and preparation in between each hole. And I'm not saying I needed 15 minutes to do this between holes, but a good 30 to 60 seconds to gather my thoughts or to emotionally off gas to regroup and prepare to have a better hole and a better next shot would have absolutely done me wonders. But I got away from it. I was caring what the other people behind us thought. I was caring about his opinion, fearful of judgment, fearful of being rejected, abandoned, which are all 3 core fears. I call this the fear jar. You and I are all biologically wired to fear being judged, abandoned, and rejected. And these manifest as various forms of learned behaviors, fear of embarrassment, fear of being made fun of, fear of being judged. It looks and feels different for all of us. But centuries and centuries ago, if you were judged, abandoned, or rejected by your tribe, you literally were ostracized and you either starved to death or you were eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. So as outdated and irrational as those three core fears may be, they are more prevalent and prominent than ever before at the core of who we are. And that's important to recognize because they ultimately serve as kind of the foundation that catalyzes the negative stream of self-talk, limiting beliefs, sabotaging stories that put into action poor decision-making, poor shot selection, poor form, rushed swings that lead to poor results that only intensify and increase negative emotions such as anger, frustration, disappointment, and inevitably the thought of what in the fuck is going on? I'm baffled. I can't believe this simple game is so irritating. Let's go home. And that pretty much sums up my first round of golf. Do you recall how you felt during yours? Do you recall the self-talk, the feelings you experienced during your first round? Maybe, maybe not, depending on when that was. But here's where I am in my journey, and I'm hopeful that by sharing that with you, it can begin to normalize some of the thoughts and feelings and beliefs that you harbor in the midst of a round, helping you to normalize them and let you know that these are perfectly valid and viable responses, and you're not alone. However, if you don't learn to take back control of your emotions, to kick out and prevent anger, frustration, disappointment from stepping into the driver's seat of your round, if you don't learn how to do that, you will continue to find yourself playing your C or D game level golf, continuing to shoot higher and higher scores. And this awareness is important. And building off of what I shared in the most recent episode here, awareness is incredibly important. In fact, I want to bring out a book, so just bear with me for a second. It's on my desk here, a book I'm reading that had a great quote about awareness. The book is actually called The Inner Game of Golf by Timothy Galway, I believe is how you pronounce it. And what he basically says is awareness in and of itself is curative. And I think that's really, really important. He goes, awareness in and of itself is curative, but the awareness has to be accompanied by a true acceptance without judgment of where you are and where you need to go. So the invitation, the challenge between now and next week's episode, because my assumption is you're going to get at least a practice session or even a full round or three in between now and next week, is to bring the awareness of what your self-talk sounds like. What emotions come up? What are the triggers? But specifically, I want to challenge you to observe through a lens of compassionate curiosity, not only your self-talk, but what that physical sensation is like. Is there anxiety in your chest in the form of tightness or tension? Are you carrying the pressure, the urgency, or expectations in the form of heaviness in your shoulders, traps, necks, or upper back? Are there nerves and anxiety manifesting as knots or butterflies in your stomach? This awareness is invaluable because inevitably, as you begin to learn how and where you carry your emotions, you're going to begin to identify cues and clues in your body about where and what emotion might be on the verge of making itself known before it actually does, by simply being aware of how and where anxiety, anger, and frustration shows up. You'll be able to proactively identify that you're on the verge of letting a particular emotion step into the driver's seat of your round. And at that point, you can take a moment to consciously and intentionally choose one of a handful of strategies to do what I like to call emotionally off gas. And that looks like various forms of breath work, a moment of yourself to collect your thoughts, center yourself, gather your awareness, and direct it back to the present moment, each of which will be strategies I discuss in depth in future episodes. Well, I really appreciate you joining me for this episode. I appreciate you allowing me to bring you up to speed on where I am. I believe the last thing I want to share today before I move forward is an update on how my second lesson went, what is going to come in the weeks ahead, a lot of exciting things already evolving with this podcast, and I'll get you out of here so you can go back to practicing and preparing on your own journey to becoming a scratch golfer. So yesterday, April 23rd, I had the pleasure of attending my second lesson. And we spent the entire time on the range, this time on the felt, the artificial turf portion of the range, not the real grass, just hitting irons. And I knew immediately based on my round, I was shanking every shot. I was slicing it to the right. All of my shots were just having a massive, massive draw to the right-hand side. And it was very evident to my coach within the first few swings that I was trying to overcompensate for that. He even asked me, what's happened since last week? How have your shots been? Have you played? And he said it was very obvious that I was overcompensating, trying to pull and control the ball back to the center, and it clearly wasn't working. So we went to the basics. He had a really cool drill, which if you follow me on Twitter, @PaulSalterCoach, or on Instagram, @PaulSalterCoaching, I put a picture up and talked about it. But essentially, I had my golf ball down, 2 golf balls on either side of it that gave just enough room for a crisp, clear, and smooth swing pattern to come through, striking the center ball without striking the other side balls, kind of like having bumpers on a bowling lane. And then he put a nickel back behind to help me begin creating that semicircle rotation in the backswing, and to, of course, bring it back on the downswing in the exact same trajectory. And that's all we did for about 70 minutes. And I began, within the first 15 minutes, to again notice nothing's changing. Like, fuck, the shots are still inconsistent. The clean contact is a hell of a lot better. Yet my shots keep going to the right. And I was so tempted at one point to tell him, I think this is just how my swing is. I think I just have to adjust for this. And instead, I stepped away from the ball. I took a couple deep breaths. I grabbed a drink of water and I went back at it. And by the end of the round, I was hitting shots exactly where I needed to go. I was hooked yet again on that addictive, intoxicating feeling of striking the ball in the sweet spot of the club, watching it hit an apex on a perfectly centered trajectory and falling exactly where it needed to, whether it be 120 or 160 yards. And damn, it reminded me of how much fun is possible when you quiet the distractions and chatter of your mind. Let go. Allow your body. Give your body permission, your subconscious the opportunity to take over and swing freely without judgment. And that's where I'm at. And that's what I'll be bringing into my round this coming Saturday. I'll be playing another 9 holes, this time on a par 3 course in St. Petersburg, Florida. I believe it's called Twin Brooks in St. Pete. I'm excited. A lot of iron work. I'll probably put an extra hour or 2 in of iron work and putting either on that day or the day before, and I will keep you posted. I sincerely appreciate you being here. Be on the lookout for episodes to come where I already have several current scratch golfers or those with a handicap less than 3 lined up to join the show as we begin to ultimately kick off an Inside the Mind series of a scratch golfer to help you continue to learn what the best of the best in this game are doing, how they're approaching it, how they think differently than you and I, so that we collectively can take tidbits away to apply to our own game as we continue to overcome the mental and emotional hurdles and hazards of our minds to shoot lower scores consistently. I sincerely appreciate you listening to another episode of the Scratch Golfer's Mindset podcast. If you found value in today's episode, share it with a fellow golfer. And if you feel called to support the show, take 30 seconds to leave a genuine rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you are listening. This goes further than you know and will help ensure that your next putt for par lips in. rather than lips out. And hey, if you're on Facebook, we've got a free and growing community for serious golfers who are chasing scratch. It's called the Aspiring Scratch Golfer Society. I go live in there once a week with a free training focusing on the mental game of golf, and we get to connect with and collaborate with other fellow aspiring scratch golfers to help one another play better golf. I'd love to see you there. The link to join and the invitation is in the show notes. With that said, wishing you the very best in your next round, and I'll catch you in the next episode.